Hey there team, welcome back to the channel and welcome back to Worth It Then Worth It Now. A bit of a side project experiment. We're going to broaden the scope a little bit, but generally speaking, I'm looking at games that aren't exactly ultra contemporary. They haven't released in the last 12 months. In most cases, I've covered these on the main channel before, and this is an opportunity for me to basically revisit and shout out Scarlett's favorites that still hold up, and I try and line it up with a sale as well. So we're looking at Deep Rock Galactic Survivor today, which is a spin-off of Deep Rock Galactic, which, you know, if you've been living under a rock, it's an excellent game. It's one of the best 4-player co-op type games that you can get on the market still today. But this is a single player, you could call it a vampire survivors-like. It's part of that explosive genre of, I don't actually know what you'd call them specifically, but more like idler come auto battler type roguelite. So it's not card deck building, it's not action adventure or anything like that. Very much it's about navigating the environment, building your dude out with upgrades, and generally speaking, let him auto fight on your behalf, and your job is just to dodge around and keep him alive. So that's what this is at its core. However, it goes above and beyond, with the aesthetic being one-to-one. Obviously, it's the guys that made Deep Rock, or at least Ghost Ship Publishing is the money men behind this, and they're the guys that made Deep Rock Galactic in the first place. So all the assets and characters, voiceovers, soundtrack, everything is from Deep Rock, and it's great because it's not homage at that point. While it's not strictly sequel, it's same universe, however you want to peel it. The fact remains that all the beautiful design aesthetic from Deep Rock Galactic in the first place is all in here as well. So that makes it a no-brainer if you love that sort of stuff. But yes, ultimately, single player, run-based, roguelite game, a lot of upgrades, a lot of outsourcing the roguelitification of this space. However, the core loop is still fun enough and stands on its own feet that it works. And this is my biggest criticism, you know, not to give you a robust history lesson, but originally they were called roguelikes with a K, and it's self-contained. Every run is potentially winnable, but it's all randomly, you know, everything that you experience is within the single run. The modern iteration is the roguelite, which is where they outsource a lot of meta progression, you know, 1% to damage for the other runs that you do after this. And the problem with that and leaning too heavily into it is you can actually kind of make your core loop dull, unpleasant, unfun, unwinnable, because you don't have 10 hours worth of grinded upgrades to actually play the game as intended and fun. Anyway, my point is that this doesn't fall into that trap. While it does have a bucket load of upgrades, it's done in such a way that it just makes you want to keep queuing up for more. So you start with the Scout class unlocked, but you can unlock the other 3. I reset my whole profile because even though I put like 50 hours into this when it first came out in early access, they've overhauled it and changed it so much. And I believe 1.0 is later this year, so we'll probably have a look at that then. But I saw this on sale and thought I'd come back. Anyway, my point is I've reset my entire profile. I had a bucket load of things unlocked, but again, it's just that good. I'm happy to start again from scratch. So you start with your first dude and he'll have his own bonuses. The Scout sort of has a dodge component and specific weapons in the table that they can get. So the different classes have different upgrades. Like obvious ones would be the engineer has turrets. There is some overlap, I believe, and as you unlock more and more stuff, you get more and more things into the table. And then on top of that, you've also got mission types, you know, spin-off side missions that you do within the run. You've got, like I said, the weapons, the dwarves that you unlock, the difficulty levels, the hazard levels as it's called in Deep Rock, and you can unlock them by getting this sort of unlock objective currency. Each mission will have 3 objectives. One of them will probably be complete the dive, so finish it. And then you'll unlock the, you know, gold star currency, but as long as you keep unlocking them, you'll unlock harder and harder hazard levels. So you're not necessarily just grinding on the same low difficulty, you push it out if only to unlock more missions and more levels. So there's so much to do. At any given time, you'll be pulled in multiple directions. Who am I going to level up? Who am I going to grind with? What level am I going to do? How hard I'm going to push the difficulty? So I guess by adding that much variation to the formula, it it keeps the game fresh, even though the loop at its most fundamental level is so good. And I would argue it's the best in the space that is this roguelite auto genre. So to peel that apart real quick, you dive in through a drill. It's the same trappings and setup as Deep Rock, so it's not like some different universe or anything like that. It's pretty much a Deep Rock dive, but done through the perspective of a different genre. And you cruise around the map and walk into walls that are mineable, and your guy will mine, and that's something you can upgrade, is your mining speed, movement speed, that sort of thing. So you don't have to just be all out combat. I mean, you do need to be, but you could favor trying to mine out objectives faster. And you can see all the different gold and nitra and that sort of stuff, morkite, that you can drill out of the wall. And these go to run-based currencies that you can use to buy upgrades between stages. Things like the morkite are part of a subsystem. You can harvest these things, and that lines up very much with the main game. If you're sensing a theme, you might be onto something. The bugs will just come at you at wave after wave. You've got a progress bar at the top of the screen, and you'll go through like a couple of events within a run. There'll be a situation where a supply drop drops and you have to clear the landing sites. You have to dig out all the rocks, all the while trying to juggle around and dodge around these monsters until it spawns in and you can get an upgrade from that. There'll be waves that trigger off, but none of these things are necessarily compulsory to deal with. Ultimately, you just need to get to the end of the wave and extract by beating the boss at the end of the wave. But it is one of those things you kind of want to eke out as much currency, as many upgrades, as many foot in the door advantages you can get going into the next level. Anyway, then you extract into the drill. There'll be a timer. It's all kept fairly short and punchy. Buy some upgrades at the interim store, and you do that like 5 times and then verse a final boss. So I suppose when explained, it doesn't sound very complex, but I would also argue that's the key to what makes it tick. The nuance of it is that it is brilliant at the basics. Along the course of it, you pick up XP and you level up, and through that you have 4 weapons slots that you can unlock, and you can get all sorts of wild different weapons. Again, I haven't played Deep Rock actual core Galactic in a little while. I should go back because they keep adding more and more weapon variants and types, and it's probably unrecognizable to me now, but I should take a deep breath and jump in the deep end. But all of those weapons are presumably reflected in here, so you can just stick with basic kinetic kits, buy lots of submachine guns and shotguns, and they all behave in different ways. Some of them, like, again, I did reset, so I'm mostly playing Scout at the moment, but they'll just fire at the closest enemy. But you can get other things that will fire at the high damage enemies. Other things that are directional. You can get like a submachine gun that fires kind of in cardinal north, south, east, west directions, but you could also get a different submachine gun that fires on that diagonal, so you're kind of firing in 8 vectors around your guy. You can get elemental weapons, lean into things like fire, electricity, cryo, so there's a ridiculous amount of build crafting in it. And as I said, between the fact that it is polished, it has its own unique twist in the navigating the environment and mining away and trying to, gauge whether you're going to have enough time to mine through the wall to get away from the relentless swarm, or try and kite them around chunks of rock. Like, it brings its own uniqueness to the table, mixed with all the meta upgrades and the theme that it's all based upon. Oh man, chef's kiss. Like I said, best in class. And it's almost a dangerous thing that I've reinstalled it, because now I'm probably just going to play it non-stop. Anyway, I reckon you should check it out, or at least wishlist it and keep an eye on it. Again, the 1.0 release, from what I understand, is later this year. So maybe you just want to wait for the full release, who knows. I did allude to channel business changing a little bit, so I've been running this experiment on this channel. I mean, this is pretty much the same content that I do on the main channel. The difference being is I do contemporary releases on the main channel. There's a million different reasons why I do that, but generally speaking, I'm limiting myself to new releases. This experiment has been fun, and it's been just retreading things that I covered under the current format on the main channel, albeit a year on. Well, I'm starting to run out of runway. I'm catching up with all the stuff that I covered, but I also realize there's a gap in my coverage that I'd like to fill, which is just classic games in general. So if you've made it this far and you're curious, the slight change will be I'm not necessarily going to just cover games that we did worth your time, worth your money on the main channel. I'm going to cover anything that I find interesting that's more than 12 months old, and I'll line it up with a sale. But now that way I have infinite content, and so we can just run this channel into the ground for the next decade. So that sounds pretty good to me, if that sounds good to you. And look, I'll probably mention something like that on the next video I put on the main channel as well, just to keep everyone in the loop. Anyway, thanks for staying, thanks for hearing me out. Team, might just leave it there for the time being, and I'll catch you guys on the next one.